This is a Perplexus. It's a game that has a little steel ball running around inside of it. And you take the ball, you put it at the start position, and then follow the ball through this maze. Now the problem is there's nothing broken inside of here. The videos I've seen people trying to take these apart on YouTube, something was broken and they had to get inside. But this isn't broken, it's just that I'm an old man and I can't see the arrows and numbers that are on these tracks. So if my wife walks in and asks me a question, you know, I'm going to have to answer the question. If I get through with answering her question and come back to the Perplexus, sometimes I'll end up back at start instead of going on the correct direction. So I want to take this apart to paint or color in, highlight or something, all these arrows and numbers, so that if I am interrupted, I won't go back to start, I will go towards the end of the game. This is the easiest one, and this is a little bit harder, quite a bit harder. I have 3 of them. This is called the Epic here. And this one, I'm not very good at all. This one I made it quite a distance on. But I don't want to pry it apart at this parting line like I've seen people do, because inevitably they transfer part of the material on this side to the material on this side, and vice versa. So it's hard to get back together, and if you don't glue it back together, I've even seen one guy use these type of spring clamps to hold it together. That's going to be really getting in your way. So I've started already. I've taken this saw. This is a Zona saw. I don't know if they make them anymore, but it's a hobby saw, and it makes a kerf that is only as wide as the blade is. This is a mini hacksaw blade, 7 inches or so long, smaller than a normal hacksaw blade. Maybe you can see the light reflecting off of it, and it has a squiggly surface. It's going back and forth, so it makes a wider curve than the width of the blade. So that, I mean, you can still use this, it just would make a wider curve on your Perplexus. Now I've already started this because I thought I was recording, and camera wasn't recording. So I've got it started here and it's coming off, but the glue that holds these 2 parts together are really strong. I use my old buck knife and I've been prying it, and you can see that some of the yellow is transferred onto the 2 halves. So apparently the glue that they glued this together with has gotten down and glued the 2 halves to the yellow band. So I'm going to pry this off with my buck knife. I'll get back with you. I was successful getting this, well, successful is kind of a relative term. I wasn't that successful. My idea didn't work very good. But I did get it apart, and I painted arrows and numbers, and I did the gray and white, and I did the white in black, I did the yellow in black, and I can see it very well now, so I know which direction I'm going to go. However, my great idea of sawing it, or prying the yellow band off, was a disaster. I got it pried halfway off, alright, but I ended up sawing it in half anyway. I also damaged the skin. See the crack there hopefully when I get it together it'll be strong enough to not crack anymore. Maybe I can put a little bit of super glue on that. But if I can get it back together, then I will do the next Perplexus in a different manner. I will saw the two pieces in half. And the Zona saw, this larger blade, it is narrow. See it up against my shirt, it's narrow, but it's 16 thousandths. This Zona blade is only 8 thousandths. Well, that doesn't matter if you can see it or not. You get the idea. This is going to be 8 thousandths, or well, I'm not good at math. It's going to be a lot thinner kerf. So the next Perplexus that I do, I'm going to saw around the double band along that parting line. And I saw on this one, but I haven't sawn it completely apart. There's a part that is being held together by its molding, or however it was put together in the beginning. And I'm going to try to get this back on there and glue it with some super glue. It's the only way I can think of doing it. So wish me luck. I've got it glued together and clamped. I tried using Gorilla Glue super glue. This is super glue, but in a gel, Gorilla Glue. This is super glue for nails. My wife uses this to fix a broken nail. I've never used it, but I might work on mine too. But I have some model cement, Tester's model cement. And I've used that to glue the two halves together. And I have had these snaps pop off. And when it popped off, it didn't separate at the parting line here. So I'm hoping that this Tester's model glue will work. So I'll give it about a half an hour and we will see what happens. Careful with it. Wish me luck. The Tester's model cement is holding. And I didn't forget to put the ball in. I was worried about that. But this cement is made for plastic. It's works on this type of plastic. You know, you probably know there's lots of different types of plastic. But it's not perfect. It's not lined up perfectly right here. And it didn't close up here and here, right here. But got the ball in, and it's holding sufficient to play the game, and that's all I care about. I would hate to keep those big clamps on it all the time and try to work around those clamps, and they're always popping off anyway. I mean, since I've been trying to fix this thing, it popped off numerous times on this project alone. So I don't want to have to keep those on it all the time. Well, I dropped the ball. Couldn't find it anywhere. Used a magnet under my furniture and everything. So I went to Ace Hardware and I got some balls. Put the ball inside Perplexus, and it's right in there somewhere. It's too big to go through the maze. So I got out my handy dandy caliper here. That ball measured 0.3125. 0.3125 equates to 5/16 ball. So I bought balls that are too big. Go figure. So I'm going to take this ball out and put in the original ball that was in the Perplexus that I searched underneath the furniture with a magnet and finally found. I'm happy. This ball measures, let's see here, 0.295 or 295 thousandths. So it's a little larger than a 1/4 inch ball. 1/4 inch is going to measure 0.25 thousandths. And so I'm going to put this back in the Perplexus. Good morning. I put the original ball back in it, glued this half back together, let it set overnight, clamped with these small paper clamps, and I still have to glue this side. But when I put it back together, I got to all the way to 58, all the way to this section right here. And then I let it fall off where there's no raised area, which is there, so you will fall off right there. And so I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of this and clamp it, and hopefully it will be totally playable. That little crack in the plastic is not even, it's right here, you probably won't be able to see it, but that little crack in the plastic doesn't even come into play. It's nowhere near where it's going to bother the game at all. Now I know this game is for kids, but I enjoy puzzles and games that make you think, and this makes you think. So I would recommend Perplexus for people of any age. I don't know if you can see it, but right here I put safety wire I drilled extra holes. There's only one hole originally in the surround this ring on the original Perplexus, so I drilled 2 more holes on one side and 1 more hole on the other side next to the original hole, and put safety wire in there to hold it together while I did the task of trying to hold everything righteously together, because it's just plastic. It seems rigid right now, but when these bands aren't on it and tight, it's not rigid at all. You can squeeze it like a rubber ball, and so you got to be very careful with it. It will crack. Like I showed you, you can damage this thing, so be careful with it. Now I'm going to do 2 other Perplexus. I would like to encourage Perplexus to paint a contrasting color in their numbers and arrows in the future, because I would buy them still. And I understand they have a bunch of different really hard ones nowadays, which I don't know if I could do. I'd like to try them though. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this up and get back with you. I've got the other half glued and clamped, and the first half here is holding well, and there are some gaps, as you can see, in the parting lines of this ring that goes around it, but it's not coming apart, and it's really solid right now. And with this glue, it's that Tester's model cement. I think it's, even though it may have these little tiny cracks in it, it's going to play like there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm happy with this so far. And like I told you, I'm doing 3 total. I have 3 of them. And I think I'm going to get better with each one. There's a learning curve here. But I wanted to show you, I have a couple of pins that I bought at Hobby Lobby. A white one and a black one. and this is what I use to color in the numbers and arrows. I also bought black and white testers, model paint. I didn't use them. And I bought some tiny brushes. I don't think I would have been very successful with this method because the pens that I used got all over the place, and I had to use Q-tips to kind of clean up the area. These pens are water soluble, so just by licking the Q-tip you can get the excess that went over the number or the arrow off of the plastic so that it cleans up the area. And there's some areas in there that you can see a little bit of the smear of discoloration, but it's not really noticeable when you're playing the game. The difficulty of using brushes over these pens is like worlds apart. I'm sure that I would have had this stuff everywhere. And I got thinner, and I would have been using a lot of thinner and on a Q-tip to get rid of the paint that I would inevitably get all over the tracks in that Perplexus. I think I was a little vague on the Zona saw. It has a spine on the back that gives it rigidity. This blade is 16 thousandths thick. This blade is 8 thousandths thick, so that's half of 16. I don't know if they make Zona saws anymore, but any hobby shop probably still has a saw that is has a thin blade on it with kind of a rigid backbone that you can saw through brass and materials that hobbyists would use. So ask your hobby shop for this type of a saw. I'll be surprised if they still make Zona, but I'm sure they make some kind of hobby saw that you could use. The tester's model cement worked very well. It's holding together very strong. This game is very playable now, and I'm very happy with the results. With that, this project is done. I hope you learned something. I certainly did. And I would like to encourage Perplexus to paint contrasting numbers and arrows on future games. Thanks for watching.